5 hours. That's all Avowed gets before I decide if it gets the rest of my time. And here's how it did. I've been doing this for a long time, and I still chase for RPGs that will grab me and just won't let me go. 5 hours is how I figure out if this is one of those. And here's where my idea came from. Whenever I was a kid, you didn't buy a game to find out if it was good. You rented it.
Get real. You'd rather be playing video games. You can rent them from Blockbuster. They've got more of the coolest new Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis games for rent than anyone in the world.
Sometimes you grabbed it on Friday and you had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to figure out if you liked it or not. It was one of those, was it a beg my parents to buy the game for me, rent it again, or really just return it and never play it again? You made that call on a weekend because the weekend is all you had. Now, the pressure didn't really go away as we got older. It just changed. I'm not working off of a rental weekend anymore. I've got a job, a life, and a backlog I stopped pretending I would finish. And now, when I'm spending is time I just don't get back. So here's what I do. I'm gonna give a game 5 hours. I'm gonna tell you if I'm gonna keep playing it, I'm gonna park it, or I'm gonna drop it. Now, all that being said, if you like a perspective of a longtime gamer, like and subscribe. Now let's get into it. So for the first one I'm playing is Avowed. It's from Obsidian and it's on the PS5. I went in not knowing too much. Some friends were positive on it and that's all I really had. And for a series, whether a game earns its first 5 hours for me or not, I feel like that's the right way in. So here's what I expected. When I think of a Western RPG, I think of Skyrim or Fallout. That's my reference point. Usually they're big, expansive, they dump you in, they tell you to figure out, and on you go. To me, the combat's good, it's fully voice acted, and that's kind of what first hooks me to keep playing the game. So here we are. Hour 1. This wasn't a tutorial with lore stapled on, which is what I was actually bracing for. You're washed up from a shipwreck onto an island, you're told you're a godlike, they call you the envoy, and you really don't know what any of that really means at that point. And that's kind of the hook. People react to who you are and what you are before you even know what you are. The dialogue is kind of what you expect from the Skyrim Fallout kind of menu selection. What's kind of cool is the background that you choose and sometimes the stats that you have can change what you select during those menus. Combat opens up right away. It gives you the melee, range, all that kind of stuff right at the beginning. Teaches you about the 2 loadouts that you can have. Then later on, after the first introductory area, you get thrown into a town. And the part that I didn't know you could do and didn't see coming is that you could pick up guns in this game, which was a little odd for me because this is purely a fantasy game. So it was kind of cool to see that you can pick up, like flintlock pistols and guns and stuff like that. And there's a difference in the way they play. You can definitely use the triggers to fire with them, but then there's a bit of a difference whenever you try to hold the trigger down and you shoot off a stronger attack, and it makes more damage whenever you actually hit them with that longer shoulder press. And with the guns, there's a bit of a methodicalness to it, because in the middle you're definitely having to reload the muskets every time you shoot the gun and stuff like that too. There's not like an automatic weapon where it's just kind of automatically shooting and then reloading. Every shot counts. And typically in these games, I play things like rogues or rangers. That's kind of my comfort zone for those types of RPGs. And those types usually have daggers or bows or something like that. And I went straight for the guns, and honestly, I'm not going back. And at the end of hour 1, I was questioning whether or not the game actually wanted me there. And what I will tell you is I lost track of time. I kind of got lost in what I was doing, and I had to go back and check my save file to see where I started and what time it was. And that to me is kind of the answer. So how did hours 2 and 3 go? Like I mentioned before, you hit that main city, and the world opens up and it stays contained, really. It's a little bit smaller than that typical feeling that you get from these Western RPGs like Skyrim or Fallout. It's not that Skyrim infinite walking that you feel like you're doing constantly throughout the map. It's not where you keep wandering for 40 hours and then you forgot what you were doing on the plot. And it's not the JRPG corridor, guided path feel either. It's kind of that sweet spot in between. And most games can't really pull that off. But there's really always something to do, but they do push you forward to make sure that you're always kind of doing something. I never bothered worrying about what do I do next. There's quests, there's things to do, there's things to explore. It never really was an issue. I will say the side quests are a little fetch questy, but every one of them does have a story and dialogue and really a reason to why you're doing it. Side quests are usually kind of hit or miss when it comes to RPGs. They can usually be padding to the game or just really no substance at all, just for more things to do while you're in there. But I'm glad to say from what I can tell, this really wasn't it. They really explore more about the world of what's going on. Another interesting thing is nothing respawns. So when an area is cleared, it stays cleared. I'm used to, a lot of JRPGs or things coming back where you kind of have to keep going back to the same place over and over to grind, and this one doesn't do that. This one balances the way you level up through battles and through side missions and all through stories. And now that all being said, you start progressing through the story, and that's when it happens. You finally turn in some of your first main quest stuff in that town, and then you're shot in the chest with an arrow in the middle of the city. Then suddenly you're back talking to some ominous thing that you don't know what it is yet at that point, but you're still alive. And once you wake up, you have some dialogue. And then I sat there how often do you get to solve your own murder? This is kind of cool. And that's when the moment hit. Everything before was set up, and now everything after, I'm all in. I want to know why I was assassinated, who wanted to assassinate me, what's the dream scourge, which is basically like this virus in the game, from what I can tell, and what is this ominous being that keeps talking to me. So here's the thing, every game has something to push back on, and here's Avowed. I start with what I expected, and I brace for something like Skyrim. That big, get lost 40-hour world or 50-hour world. Avowed isn't that, it's contained, and I would call that its strength. But it does come with some kind of cost. If what you want from a Western RPG is the big Western sprawl, the freedom to just wander off and disappear, Avowed keeps you on a shorter leash than things like Skyrim. The thing that I'm praising, it would maybe bug some people that came for the open world. Then there was the combat. This one's probably on me a bit. I went all in on guns early on. And early going, I didn't know if that was the right call, to be honest with you. They play a little bit slower than, bows and melee weapons. And throughout the game, I started to really have to change the approach of how I played the game. It honestly just wasn't something I was expecting for some reason, even though it's a brand new weapon that I wasn't used to. The novelty, wears off in the beginning whenever you start really getting into real fights. It's one of those things where you kind of have to get into a rhythm as you start fighting. You can't really just button mash or trigger mash while you play as a person that uses guns or anything like that. And once I learned the slower, the heavier rhythm, the bigger punch that the guns provided, it was all worth it in the end. But that's a real adjustment cost. If you play something that's a little bit off meta than what you're used to in these types of games, you're going to deal with some kind of struggles at the beginning. The first companion that I get is, he's fine. He tanks and shoots and helps keep aggro while I play the game. And here's why the fine is actually a knock against the game than not. I come from a land of JRPGs, and JRPGs is kind of where you live or die when it comes to the party. The story and the people are half the reason why you're still playing the game. 5 hours in, I'm really coming back for the story and the gameplay more than I am for the characters that are playing right next to me. This could be just because it's just the beginning of the game, and some of the time investment might help with getting more interested in the characters or character that you have. But in the first 5 hours, that's going to be something that I consider. That being said, none of these are a deal breaker, but that's kind of the point. I wanted to try to find some cracks in the armor of this game that I actually started to like in the beginning. Now, by hour 5, the test is one sentence. What makes me want hour 6? And there are 3 things easily. I get to solve my own murder. I want to know what the dream scourge is and how to solve it. And I want to know what a godlike is and why it's important. And they're all pulling me forward. It's not that the combat's fun, which it is fun, but that's not the only thing that's pulling me forward. So that being said, what's my verdict? Do I keep playing? Do I park it? Or do I drop it? And for me, Avowed is keep playing. But it's not perfect, but the fact that it earned its next session without me talking myself into it, that deserves something. I expect a Skyrim. Expansive dumps you in, wait for 30 hours until the story shows up. The feel is Bethesda, the familiarity of those first-person RPGs, but the pacing isn't. It's paced for something more directed. Go to point A to point B with story beats in between. You're on a schedule instead of hitting a wall and being told to come back in 30 hours. Most RPGs show you something and don't pay off for another 20 or 30 hours. And sometimes I'm done holding on to that question just to hold on to faith that they're going to answer the question. And this one respects your time. And it's not because it's short, but because it earns to be on your schedule. The proof is that murder that happened at hour 2 or 3. It's exactly what an adult gamer with limited time needs whenever they're trying to make a decision of whether or not they want to play a game or not. If you've bounced off of other big open world RPGs because they felt like a second job, this is the one to give 5 hours to. I'm going to play more of it, and that's already decided. So that's it. One game, 5 hours, one verdict. What should be the next one? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.